Service have been very kind of protective of President Trump, obviously, as they should be.
Yeah, no, I actually, it's interesting. They had to clear out this entire room. It threw a curveball in our entire day. But it was actually one of the greatest things because I was like, wow, they're actually doing their job to protect him from someone assassinating him.
This is my question.
Someone's going to try to
Are you concerned about that? Yeah.
Well, what I saw today actually gave me a lot of hope that the Secret Service is really taking their job seriously. I know people have to wait long lines, and I say, okay, well, do you want him to be protected or not? And I think people understand that. Am I worried? Worry's not the right word. I'm afraid someone's going to try. And because what else do they have left? And I hope God protects him, and I hope those agents around him.
But we are so far removed and detached from presidents and presidential candidates being shot at, we think is that it's this unknown concept. Gerald Ford was shot at in downtown San Francisco. Ronald Reagan was shot as president of the United States. Bobby Kennedy was shot and killed. JFK was shot and killed. Malcolm X was shot and killed. MLK Jr. was shot and killed. Like post-1990, we haven't had that happen in our country. And so we're so far removed that they make you seem as if you're a crazy person when you say this. But in reality, you look at American history, it is filled with presidents, presidential candidates, political leaders that have been taken out. And yet, as soon as the violence against Trump happens, they will justify it. Of course they will. If Donald Trump was taken out, God forbid, MSNBC would say, well, you know, you act like Hitler. Don't be surprised to somebody. That's what they would do, 100%. And they're going to not, if they can't get to Trump, if the Secret Service continues to do their job, which I pray they do, they're just going to go after the next level down. They're going to go after some of the rank and file. The man who sowed hate reaped what he deserved. That's what they're going to say. Oh, you know, he created this movement and F around and find out is what they're going to say. No, the level of rhetoric and narrative, it's reaching a boiling point because they're running out of options.
They're repulsive. They are the lowest of the low. And again, there's so many elements here to unpack. You have Barack Obama and Bill Clinton all say, you know, thoughts and prayers. Oh, really? You said he was Hitler, basically, many of you. Like, if Hitler got shot at, would you say thoughts and prayers for Hitler or for Vladimir Putin? You guys compared him to Putin repeatedly. So one of those is a lie. Either he's not Putin or Hitler, or you actually don't mean thoughts and prayers for Donald Trump, and you hope that he got his brains blown out. We were anywhere between 1 inch to 2 inches, Megan, from civilizational chaos.
Yeah.
We were they say
it would have been a
football,
civil war.
I hope you're wrong, and I think you're right. They say football is a game of inches. The civilization is now a game of inches.
Real life implications, because Vivek, I mean, you are unafraid to ask the tough questions. When you ran for president, you went there on great replacement. You went there on the tough stuff. Vivek, talk about DEI and then help me understand. Secret Service had eyes on this guy 30 minutes before. They did nothing to rush Trump off stage. Local police did nothing. How did he get to the roof? They were in the same building as this. Was this malevolence or incompetence?
So, look, I think that the incompetence, sadly, across so much of the federal bureaucracy is unsurprising.
It sounds like an intel agency that's trying to distract from the fact that they failed. And the intel agencies are against Donald Trump. They spied on him repeatedly. And let's be honest, this is a complete abject failure of the U.S. Secret Service. But, I mean, I hope this was incompetence. So let's go through the list. They had eyes on him 3 hours beforehand. They had an unguarded building. They had a roof. What are there, like 6 roofs in Butler, Pennsylvania? This is not Gotham City, okay? Like, oh, wait, maybe the roof that's 120 yards away, maybe we should protect that. This dude comes out of his car with a ladder, and no one thinks of anything about it. The Secret Service was in the building that it was happening. So he's on the roof. They're in the building. The snipers have eyes on him before this happens. Not once does anyone say, get Trump off the stage, get Trump off the stage, get Trump off the stage. That this guy went through the mags earlier, and they had a scope finder. Is that rangefinder or a scope finder? Rangefinder, yeah. Rangefinder, which you use to identify targets. And the Secret Service oh, that's weird. They made him go back through the mags. He was caught on camera beforehand. I hope that was all incompetence and not something darker.
Oh, to me, that sounds exactly like something darker. I'm not going to lie. And another thing you said, I remember you made a tweet about how Vivek had predicted a lot of things, and we actually got to sit down with Vivek. So
He's awesome.
That's my guy for real. We love Vivek, but so I just want to think like it just doesn't make sense. Like how does something like that
None
happen?
of it makes sense.
Yeah. And I remember Vivek was saying how he wanted to, do away with the 3-letter agencies. Do you think like that's probably could be maybe who's behind it?
At the very least, this looks like gross negligence. It very well could have been, let's not do our job because we hate Trump. That is looking as if it's more and more likely.
Okay.
And or the third option, that the Secret Service is actually much more of a theater troupe, meaning that they just kind of pretend that they're protecting the president to deter threats, and they actually aren't doing anything.
Yeah.
And that saddens me because I know so many of these guys and I've seen them work. They're very good in the intimate, close personal protection. But I think as the rings expand, maybe how unprotected has Trump been for the last 7 years? Could anyone just come up with a gun at any time to come to Trump? I mean, that makes you think.
That does.
I was on, just so you know, we do a lot of Turning Point events, right? I warned our audience about this. Dan knows. Dan does our personal protection. And so they use these huge mags, right? Magnetometers. And they don't catch a lot of weapons that come into these events, right? And we know that for a fact. In fact, they miss knives, they miss stuff all the time. We tell them that. They refuse to update their technology. Our technology is much better. We're able to use sophisticated imaging to actually see any weapons immediately. And we told the Secret Service that, and they couldn't care less. We deal with the Secret Service a lot. And you have to wonder, are they all just is it kind of a fake organization?
Yeah, that's insane. Wow. That's an interesting perspective.
Certain things have natural explanations, and certain things are so improbable. The 15-degree turn of the head, think of what the country would be today if not for the 15-degree turn of the head.
I don't say this lightly. I don't know the country would have ever healed from that. And I say that because there has never been a moment where we kind of were saying, I mean, I said out loud for months, they're going to try to assassinate him. They're trying to assassinate Tucker, said to other people. Yeah. And this country's already like on the verge of combusting. And you're going to all of a sudden have the leader, the figure, the symbol who's been impeached, indicted, convicted, and he gets his brains blown out in an open air rally. I don't know what would have happened next, but it could have ended the country. And I know it sounds apocalyptic. They're saying we're looking for a motive, and there are a couple potential explanations. He could have wanted to be famous, or that it was politically driven. That's one of the two.
Right.
I don't think anything beyond that.
He could have been crazy in the sense that Reagan's would-be assassin wanted to impress Jody.
At the core of a liberal is someone that would use the sword if they had it. They are very violent people at their core. They always have been. They can't debate. They can't have conversation. So they'll resort to these tactics. They're going to do everything they possibly can to try to murder this movement because they can't beat us. So they're going to try to take weapons. And no, we're very aware of that. I'm aware of it. We have to have full-time security. This is not a joke. This is who these people are.
He's briefing with the Secret Service snipers whenever they arrived, and that never happened. So I think that was probably a pivotal point where I started thinking things were wrong because that never happened, and we had no communication with the Secret Service.
You had no communication with the Secret Service at all on that Saturday?
Not until after the shooting.
And by then?
It was too late.
Sean Parnell continues with us. Sean, your take on that?
Yeah, unbelievable. It's just like an unbelievable, I said it before and I'll say it again, an unbelievable dereliction of duty by the United States Secret Service to do something like that. And, you know, I know you think it's incomprehensible to have a sniper look down the scope, think friendly, maybe not friendly, but it's in that split second of hesitation, like, wait, that's a dude in long hair. That's not somebody in a uniform. You pull your eye back from the scope and then you get back on the scope and pull the trigger. Maybe a second or two goes by, but that sniper's still able to get 6 rounds on the target. And that right there is exactly what I'm talking about. Those meetings, you know, those Beaver County SWAT guys that you just showed, That's why those meetings with the United States Secret Service are so critically important. Because even now we're like, well, were officers assigned to be on that roof? Did Secret Service task them with that? Oh, I've heard that it was too hot and maybe they were in the window. But now we learn that even if you were in the window, you could have easily seen crooks on the lower roof. But more than that, like one of the biggest things that really not a whole heck of a lot of people are talking about is that there are two counter sniper teams positioned directly behind President Trump as you look at the television, if you're watching the rally on TV, directly over his left shoulder and his right shoulder looking out over the crowd. But what about counter sniper teams looking in the opposite direction, one of which would have been on that rooftop looking at the wood line, the 5 or 6 kilometers of wood line directly behind President Trump? So it's just like, there was no overwatch on that. There was no eyes on the wood line. So in the moment, I was thinking that there were multiple shooters and maybe this was a more complex attack than it was. And I'm thinking, well, there's not going to be the manpower to search that wood line. So we have to make sure that we have, an evacuation plan for these people to make sure they're protected from that. But again, I'm asking questions like that on the ground as a civilian, but the United States Secret Service, at least it seems at this point, didn't even consider it.